Of course, some accuse the unfortunate man of having simulated this attack on himself. But apart from the fact that he could not have bound himself in that manner, it was established that the writing on the card was entirely different from that of Rosaine, but on the contrary resembled the handwriting of Arsène Lupin, as it was reproduced in an old newspaper found on board. Thus it appeared that Rosaine was not Arsène Lupin, but was Rosaine, the son of a Bordeaux merchant. And the presence of Arsène Lupin was once more affirmed, and that in a most alarming manner. Such was the state of terror amongst the passengers that none would remain alone in the stateroom or wander singly in unfrequented parts of the vessel. We clung together as a matter of safety, and yet the most intimate acquaintances were estranged by a mutual feeling of distrust. Arsène Lupin was now everybody and anybody. Our excited imaginations attributed to him miraculous and unlimited power. We supposed him capable of assuming the most unexpected disguises, of being, by turns, the highly respectable Major Rawson or the noble Marquis de Raverden. Or even, for we no longer stopped with the accusing letter of R, or even such a person well known to all of us, and having a wife, children, and servants. The first wireless dispatches from America brought no news. At least the captain did not communicate any to us. The silence was not reassuring. Our last day on the steamer seemed interminable. We lived in constant fear of some disaster. This time it would not be a simple theft or a comparatively harmless assault. It would be a crime, a murder. No one imagined that Arsène Lupin could confine himself to those two trifling offenses. Absolute master of the ship, the authorities powerless, he could do whatever he pleased. Our property and lives were at his mercy. Yet those were delightful hours for me, since they secured me the confidence of Miss Nellie. Deeply moved by those startling events, and being of a highly nervous nature, she spontaneously sought my side, a protection and security that I was pleased to give her. Inwardly, I blessed Arsène Lupin. Had he not been the means of bringing me and Miss Nellie closer to each other. Thanks to him, I could now indulge in delicious dreams of love and happiness, dreams that I felt were not unwelcome to Miss Nellie. Her smiling eyes authorized me to make them. The softness of her voice bade me hope. As we approached the American shore, the active search for the thief was apparently abandoned, and we were anxiously awaiting the supreme moment in which the mysterious enigma would be explained. Who was Arsène Lupin? Under what name, under what disguise was the famous Arsène Lupin concealing himself? And at last that supreme moment arrived. If I lived 100 years, I shall not forget the slightest details of it. "How pale are you, Miss Nellie?" I said to my companion as she leaned upon my arm, almost fainting. "And you," she replied, "ah, you are so changed." Just think, this is the most exciting moment, and I'm delighted to spend it with you, Miss Nellie. I hope that your memory will sometimes revert. But she was not listening. She was nervous and excited. The gangway was placed in position, but before we could use it, the uniformed custom officers came aboard. Miss Nellie murmured, "I shouldn't be surprised to hear that Arsène Lupin escaped from the vessel during the voyage. Perhaps he preferred death to dishonor and plunged into the Atlantic rather than be arrested." "Oh, do not laugh," she said. Suddenly I started, and in answer to her question I said, "Do you see that little old man standing at the bottom of the gangway with an umbrella and an olive green coat?" "It is Ganimard." "Ganimard? Yes, the celebrated detective who was sworn to capture Arsène Lupin." "Ah, I can understand why we did not receive any news from this side of the Atlantic. Ganimard was here, and he was always keeping his business secret. Then, do you think he will arrest Arsène Lupin? Who can tell? The unexpected always happens when Arsène Lupin is concerned in the affair. Oh, she exclaimed, with that morbid curiosity particular to women. I should like to see him arrested. You will have to be patient, no doubt. Arsène Lupin has already seen his enemy and will not be in a hurry to leave the steamer. The passengers were now leaving the steamer, leaning on his umbrella with an air of careless indifference. Ganimard appeared to be paying no attention to the crowd that was hurrying down the gangway. The Marquis de Reverdin, Major Rawson, and the Italian Rivolta, and many others had already left the vessel before Rosaine appeared. Poor Rosaine, perhaps it is he after all, said Miss Nellie to me. What do you think? I think it would be very interesting to have Ganimard and Rosaine in the same picture. You can take the camera. I am loaded down. I gave her the camera, but it was too late for her to use it. Rosaine was already passing the detective. An American officer standing behind Ganimard leaned forward and whispered in his ear. The French detective shrugged his shoulders, and Rosaine passed on. Then, my God, who was Arsène Lupin? Yes, said Miss Nellie, aloud. Who can it be? Not more than 20 people now remained on board. She scrutinized them one by one, fearful that Arsène was not amongst them. We cannot wait much longer, I said to her. She started down the gangway. I followed. But we had not taken 10 steps when Ganimard barred our passage. Well, what is it? I explained. One moment, monsieur. What's your hurry? I am escorting mademoiselle. One moment, he repeated in a tone of authority. Then, gazing into my eyes, he said, Arsène Lupin, is it not? I laughed and replied, no, simply Bernard d'Andrézy. Bernard d'Andrézy died in Macedonia 3 years ago. If Bernard d'Andrézy were dead, I should not be here. But you are mistaken. Here are my papers. They are his, and I can tell you exactly how they came into your possession. You are a fool, I exclaimed. Arsène Lupin sailed under the name of R. Yes, another of your tricks, a false scent that deceived them at Havre. You play a good game, my boy, but this time luck is against you. I hesitated a moment. Then he hit me a sharp blow in the right arm, which caused me to utter a cry of pain. He had struck the wound, yet unhealed, referred to in the telegram. I was obliged to surrender. There was no alternative. I turned to Miss Nellie, who had heard everything. Our eyes met, and she glanced at the kodak I had placed in her hands. I made the gesture that conveyed to me the impression that she understood everything. Yes, there, between the narrow folds of black leather, in the hollow center of the small object, I had taken the precautions to place in her hands before Ganimard arrested me. It was there. I had deposited Rosaine's 20,000 francs and Lady Gerlin's pearls and diamonds. Oh, I pledge my oath that at that solemn moment when I was in the grasp of Ganimard and his 2 assistants, I was perfectly indifferent to everything, to my arrest, to the hostility of the people, everything except this one question. What will Miss Nellie do with the things I had confided to her? In the absence of that material and conclusive proof, I had nothing to fear. But would Miss Nellie decide to furnish that proof? Would she betray me? Would she act the part of an enemy who could not forgive, or of a woman whose scorn is softened by feelings of indulgence and involuntary sympathy? She passed in front of me. I said nothing but bowed very low. Mingled with the other passengers, she advanced to the gangway with my kodak in her hand. It occurred to me that she would not dare expose me publicly, but she might do so when she reached a more private place. However, when she passed only a few feet down the gangway, with a movement of simulated awkwardness, she left the camera fall into the water between the vessel and the pier. Then she walked down the gangway and quickly lost to sight in the crowd. She had passed out of my life forever. For a moment I stood motionless. Then to Gaminard's great astonishment, I muttered, "Oh, what a pity that I am not an honest man." Such was the story of his arrest as narrated to me by Arsène Lupin himself. The various incidents which I shall record in writing a later day have established between us certain ties, shall I say, of friendship. Yes, I venture to believe that Arsène Lupin honors me with his friendship, and it is through friendship that he occasionally calls on me and brings me into the silence of my library. His youthful exuberance of spirits, the contagion of his enthusiasm, and the mirth of a man for whom destiny has not but favors and smiles. His portrait, how can I describe him? I have seen him 20 times, and each time he was a different person. Even he himself said to me on one occasion, "I no longer know who I am. I cannot recognize myself in the mirror." Certainly he was a great actor, and possessed a marvelous faculty for disguising himself. Without the slightest effort, he could adopt the voice, gestures, and mannerisms of another person. "Why," said he, "why should I retain a definite form and feature? Why not avoid the danger of a personality that is ever the same? My actions will serve to identify me." Then he said with a touch of pride, "So much the better if no one ever say with absolute certainty, 'There is Arsène Lupin.' The essential point is the public may be able to refer to my work and say, without fear of mistake, 'Arsène Lupin did that.'"